I would say my number one tip for successfully growing a practice is to grow people before you grow locations. I think the mistake that
Okay.
many practices make is they think that more providers, more marketing, more services, more technology equates to a successful practice. But in actuality, from my perspective, when you grow people, when you grow culture, when you grow leaders, when you grow problem solvers in your organization, you grow a more successful practice with a strong foundation for even future and better growth. Every second Tuesday, we go into the community, we go to the local park, literally down the street from our clinic, and we walk with our community. We listen to our patients, we listen to people who are not our patients, and we educate them on health. We answer questions, but it's something when the community sees their doctor in the community. You just don't see us within the four walls of the exam room. I think for primary care, you have to be adaptable. Now, I've been a part of organizations that tried to have the same model at every location even in different states, and it does not work. You have a core of what you do, but as you go from location or from region to region, you have to be adaptable to what that region needs. I found Talkie at a very pivotal point in our practice.
Oh.
We had astronomical growth, and our phone calls were ringing off the hook.
Mm.
We could not keep up with the number of calls that were coming into our practice. And so I needed a solution. And the solution was not hiring a call center with 20 different people. That was not the solution. And so I researched and I found Talkie. I practice something I learned from Warren Buffett, and I
Mhm,
teach my
mhm.
leaders this too. There's three I's you're looking for when you interview candidates. That is intelligence, initiative, integrity.
Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to Scaling Practice Management, the show where we help practice managers grow smarter, not harder. My name is Jakub Grajcar. I'm the head of marketing at Talkie.ai, where we help medical practices stop the phone from ringing off the hook and unburden their front desk team with AI medical receptionist agents. And we're already helping over 300,000 patients every month. My guest today is Dr. Lewis Gilbert. Dr. Gilbert, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I gotta say, I'm gonna reveal that to the watchers and listeners. We're recording this one at an odd time. It's late in the evening for you, early in the morning for me. So we both got an interesting kind of energy, right?
We do.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see how the episode proceeds. So, a couple words about Dr. Gilbert. Dr. Gilbert is the founder and CEO of Cornerstone MD, dear watchers and listeners. That's a multi-location family medicine practice serving Houston and Pasadena in Texas. We're here today to talk about leadership, integrity, and growing a practice the right way. And Dr. Gilbert and Cornerstone are also, I'm happy to say, clients of Talkie.ai. So we're sure to talk about automating the front desk as well. So that's where we're going to go. But first, there's two scaling practice management traditions that we're going to cover. And the first is the warm-up game. So here's how the warm-up game works, Dr. Gilbert. Please pick three numbers from 1 to 10.
All right. 3, 5,
Okay,
7.
3, 5, 7. Gotcha.
Mhm.
So these are the categories you'll be choosing from for your warm-up question. The categories you picked are travel, pets, and talent.
Travel, pets, or talent. Let's go with
What's the good one?
talent.
Talent? I was hoping you would pick that one. Okay, so what's something you're surprisingly good at that has nothing to do with work?
Oh, I'm a musician. So
Okay.
I played the piano. I played the drums growing up. I played the trumpet growing up. Any instrument, if you put it in my hands, I can figure out how to play it.
Okay. Do you often perform in front of people? Played some
Yeah.
gigs?
Well, absolutely. Well, I grew up in church, and so playing
Okay.
in church, I've played since I was a kid and since I could walk, playing the drums or piano. And so, yes, on a weekly basis.
That's amazing. That's so cool. And we got that in common. I play bass, although I used to
Nice,
play bass in like a metal band, so a bit of a
nice.
different
A little bit of
context.
difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not actively playing right now, but I was just reminiscing, like, we had this leadership offsite last week at Talkie, and I asked the question of, like, "What's the bravest thing you've ever done?" And one of those on my list was performing in front of people. I was not a super experienced bass player when I started performing, and it's such a rush, I'm sure you'll agree. So what's your favorite to play out of the instruments you mentioned?
I would say the piano, it relaxes me. And so,
Okay.
tough day, tough week, getting on the piano is a way to kind of just relieve some stress and kind of relax and de-wind.
Yeah. You play songs you know, or do you, like, improvise and compose?
A little bit of both. So I can play by ear, and then
Oh,
I took music as a kid, so I can read music a little bit and play.
that's so cool. Favorite music genre then?
Classical.
Oh, okay, okay. I should get some
Mhm.
recommendations from you, for that. That's great. Okay, cool. Well, I'm so glad, when you picked the categories, I was like, pick talent, because I don't ask that one very often. There's certain interesting biases in how people pick. I don't think anyone has ever picked 10 yet, for example, so this is a
Okay.
hint for the future guests. Pick 10. It's a fun category. But thank you so much for playing the warm-up game. Okay, so that's one
Absolutely.
scaling practice management tradition down. Now, for the other, this is the question that everybody gets first. The question is always the same, but the answer is always different. And I'm really curious about your answer, Dr. Gilbert. What is your number one tip for successfully growing a healthcare practice? From your direct experience, what would that be?
That's a good question. I would say my number one tip for successfully growing a practice is to grow people before you
Mm,
grow locations. I think the mistake that
okay.
many practices make is they think that more providers, more marketing, more services, more technology equates to a successful practice. But in actuality, from my perspective, when you grow people, when you grow culture, when you grow leaders, when you grow problem solvers in your organization, you grow a more successful practice with a strong foundation for even future and better growth.
Okay, I love that answer and definitely want to dig deeper. So you phrased it in an interesting way. Grow problem solvers. What do you mean by that?
You want people who bring you answers to problems, solutions more than they bring you problems. Because when you have people on your team who can think through what is presented, issues, situations, and they can bring their insights, they can bring their solutions to the table, and you have a group of people who think like that, you come up with better solutions for the entire organization instead of
Mm.
solutions coming from just one person, the leader, when you have multiple voices in the room offering their input, their insight. I tend to see better results when you have that type of leadership structure in your organization.
Yeah. So if somebody's not showing that behavior, how do you steer them towards showing that behavior? Do you just ask them, what your idea for what their idea for the solution is? Is there more to that?
I would say oftentimes is growing the confidence of the people
Ah.
in your organization. I think a lot of times people come in, they may be a little timid, they may be afraid of making a mistake. And, no one wants to make a mistake in public. But when you allow people to make mistakes, judgment-free zones, and you allow people to think freely and offer advice freely and input freely with confidence, I think that helps the entire group feel more confident. And that's one way you can steer people into being problem solvers.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. And I think, this comes to some extent, this comes with time, right? People growing their
Mhm,
confidence. But I think, especially at the beginning, when they're joining the team, or like the people are really sensitive to how you react to their
mhm,
problems, right? And,
mhm.
the way you, even if it's a problem that you don't necessarily agree with, the way you kind of react to it or give that feedback, I think it's really crucial.
Absolutely.
Have you found anything that works for that in terms of, you want that person to stay confident, but maybe this particular idea was not the best. So how do you tell them that?
I practice that you never criticize in public. Try
Mm,
to
okay.
praise in public, but criticize in private. And so if there is an idea that's presented to the team that may not be the best idea, the best thing from my standpoint is to take that individual aside, maybe have a one-on-one and kind of explain to them or try to first get their input. Why did they come to that, conclusion? What made them bring that idea to the table? and then kind of redirect and show them a different way of looking at the problem and the situation and giving a better solution next time. But I practice praise in public, criticize in private when you can. Now, there are some times where you have to address something in public, but most often, if you practice praising in public, criticizing in private, I feel like that works well.
Okay, okay, yeah, that absolutely lands. I think we'll get to back to that in just a moment, but first,
Mhm.
I thought, Dr. Gilbert, it would be good for the watchers and listeners to understand your practice a little bit more, before we proceed. So could you say more about your practice, about your team, just so people have the right context for this conversation?
Yeah, so we are a primary care group located in Houston and Greater Houston, Texas. We have one clinic that we started first in Pasadena, Texas, which is Southeast Houston, different demographic of people. And then we have our newest location located in Houston, Texas proper, essentially the center of Houston, where we built the second clinic. Beautiful space. And so we practice full scale primary care. We have women's health, men's health. We see ages 5 and above at both our clinics. And at our new location, we opened a med spa. So we have a medical spot at our newest location where we are providing aesthetic care to the different individuals who choose to come to that clinic and take those services. And so, very excited about our growth. We've been growing by leaps and bounds here in the Houston area. And I always pride ourselves on the service that we give to individuals. A lot of patients coming in our doors are typically referred by friends, family, coworkers because they appreciate and they trust the service that we give at both our locations. So very proud of what we built. Already looking at a third location in Houston as well. And so my goal is to build a brand new location at least once a year.
That's great. Yeah, so it sounds like you've got a practice and you're scaling it, so you're a perfect fit for this show. Sorry, I had
Absolutely.
to say that. Okay, so one thing I wanted to bite on here is you said you pride yourselves on the service. So I feel like that's on the minds of a lot of practice owners and
Mhm,
managers, right? Probably all of them. How to
mhm.
achieve and keep a high level of service. It sounds like you've achieved that. So what do you think helped you do it?
I think it's a work in progress. I think
Mm,
you have to engage yourself in the community where you are growing your practice. And I think you have to plant where you can grow, and you have to grow where you're planted. And so,
okay.
one thing we pride ourselves in at both our locations, we are an integral part of the community. At our Pasadena location, one thing we started was a program called Walk with a Doc, where every second Tuesday we go into the community, we go to the local park, literally down the street from our clinic, and we walk with our community. We listen to our patients, we listen to people who are not our patients, and we educate them on health. We answer questions, but it's something when the community sees their doctor in the community. You just don't see us within the four walls of the exam room, but you actually see us engaging the community. And I think that is one way that you stimulate success and growth. Another program that we have that we are very proud of is a food insecurity program. And through this program, we're able to feed individuals who are struggling. And we know that food is a form of medicine. If you're not eating right, it will impact your entire health. And so, through our foundation, the Cornerstone MD Cares Foundation, that we built through our primary care practice, we're able to provide healthy meals to patients and all the community who may be suffering from food insecurity. And so, that's the type of engagement that we have created around our clinics. We are a integral part of the community, and I feel like that is one way you grow a successful practice.
That's amazing. That's great. I'm very curious about the Walk with a Dog initiative that you
Mhm,
mentioned. So, and I love that it's like a pun in the name, right? Walk with a,
mhm,
not a dog, but a, okay, cool.
mhm.
So, could you take us deeper into that? As in, what do these walks look like? And to somebody who might be thinking, okay, I'm a doctor, maybe I should start doing something like that. How do the conversations go? What kind of questions can they expect? What's the vibe there?
Absolutely. So we started this through support from the Texas Medical Association. So great
Uh-huh.
medical association down here in Texas. But essentially, what we've done is we picked one day a month. We advertised that in our clinic. We sent a big email blast. We sent text messages to our patients, letting them know, hey, we're going to be walking second Tuesday coming up. And now we're to the point to where patients are asking us, when can we walk again? Can we add more
That's so
days?
cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so we usually get to the park. We first meet up at a location. We can talk about a health topic, whatever a patient recommends. We talk about diabetes, hypertension, whatever the question is for that day. And we begin that way. We do a little stretching, and then we just walk. And I have a partner at our Pasadena location, and even at the Houston location. Those partners come and they walk with us too. And so we just walk with our patients, and the patients ask us about our personal life. We ask them about their personal life, whatever they feel comfortable sharing. And we talk about health topics and ways to stay healthy. And so it's just a great, great program that we've started, and we've seen the fruits of the labor of that program within the community.
Okay, interesting. So any other advice to somebody who's looking to start something like that? You mentioned I'm looking for like the ingredients of the soup, right? You mentioned like an email blast, text blast,
Yeah.
same time every month or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we send the email and text blast about 5 days before. So we walk on
Uh-huh.
Tuesday. We usually send it on Thursday or Friday of the previous week. And outside of that, man, what I would recommend people is they just do it. They just get outside, they inform their patients, and they just find a location and they just get out there and walk with their patients. It is super, super rewarding just to have that connection with our patients. And, patients, when you do that, they feel like family. They check on you, they call. It's amazing to see what has budded from this Walk with a Dog program.
Yeah, yeah, that's so great. I can picture myself there, it sounds so great and it feels good to even
Mhm.
talk about it. So
Absolutely.
definitely kudos on that initiative. So and I wanted to touch more upon the idea of this grow where you're planted concept because you alluded to the fact that your Pasadena clinic and your Houston clinic, they run a little different, that you kind of adapted to where they are. Can you say
Mhm.
more about that? What are the differences there?
Yeah, absolutely. So our Pasadena location, it is more blue collar. And so
Mm-hmm.
that clinic is located around a lot of industrial plants around the city. And so we have a lot of blue collar patients who come in and see us there.
Mm-hmm.
And so our model is a little bit different. And we even have late hours because we know patients in that part of Houston, they tend to get off of work late. And so we want to support our patients and be there when they need us. And so we have some late hours at that clinic. Whereas our Houston location is more white collar. You have your more businessmen, business women in that location. And so at that location, we're very efficient. We offer the medical spa services. We offer a little bit more technology in that part of the Houston area, but it essentially boils down to knowing where you're planted. Okay, in order to grow, you got to know where you're planted. For instance, you don't plant a natural plant that's natural to and native to Texas. You don't plant that plant in Washington State. It's not
Sure.
going to grow, right? And so you got to know where you are and make sure you're planting the right thing where you are so it can grow successfully. So you got to be able to grow where you're planted and plant where you can grow. And what I mean by plant where you can grow, there are some areas where you just won't be successful as a clinic if you don't have the right model. So you have to know where you're putting new clinics, new locations. Will this place fit with my model? Or am I willing to do the hard work to understand what this part of the community needs and provide that to them? And so you got to grow where you're planted and you got to plant where you grow. And that
Yeah.
also takes some, you got to adapt. You got to keep your ear to the street in
Mhm.
essence, and understand what does your community need. This year they may need something, but next year they may need something different. And so you always have to be adaptable, listening to your patients, seeing how you can meet their needs where you are.
Yeah, I totally see it. And it connects, right? Because in order to keep your ear to the ground, walking with your patients regularly and getting to have those conversations with them, that's how you get this input and feedback, right?
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And that's just one, even with the food insecurity program, to be able
Mm,
to, I tell the story. There was one patient who I saw her in clinic that day. She completed the food insecurity questionnaire And we worked with a local health food store here in Houston to provide us healthy meals for our patients. And I ended up calling the patient, hey, Mrs. So and so, I understand, you screened positive for our food insecurity. We have some fresh meals for you if you need them. And so after working a long day in clinic, I packed the meals up in my car, raining that day, drove out to her home,
Oh.
and she was sitting in her home with no lights, no electricity, storming
Mhm.
raining. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? She had told me her and her husband was in the back room. He had just got off work. She said, our lights just went off. Our refrigerator doesn't work. We don't have any money and we didn't know what we were going to eat. And she was like, Dr. Gilbert, you don't know, your phone call literally made our day because we didn't have any food. We didn't have any lights. And so that's what I'm saying, understanding what your community needs. And this is in my Pasadena location.
Mm.
Understanding what your community needs and meeting that need is so very important to grow a successful practice.
That's excellent. That's amazing. What a great story. Thank you for telling that, Dr. Gilbert. All right. So the next thing I wanted to ask about, yeah, still on the subject of having these two locations, how do you handle that operationally then? As in, do you have a separate, is it just a matter of like opening hours, or do you have a separate list of standards for each location? I wonder, how you keep it, keep the ducks in a row, so to speak, so that one location runs in their own way, the other in their own way. How you handle that?
Yeah, we have one standard at both locations. Excellence, every encounter, every patient. That's the
Mm,
standard. Excellence, every encounter, every patient. And so we have a core standard of how we practice medicine and how we do operations. But then again, we are adaptable. And so we have some changes that are a little bit different at each location, but the core of what we do is the same. And so, I was blessed before opening my practice to be a part of leadership at two large healthcare organizations. And so being
mm.
able to understand how you run multiple practices, you keep your core, but you're able to maintain the differences from each practices. I was able to learn that before starting my own practice and my own organization. And so carried a lot of those trials and a lot of those lessons to Cornerstone MD.
Okay, okay, that makes perfect sense. And this honestly reconciles something that I saw as a bit of a contrast between this conversation and some previous ones that I've had. Because I've heard like very strong opinions even on this show, like standardize, right? If you want to scale, to multiple locations, you need to have some sort of like one standard that you spread to all. And from what you're saying, that is still part of the story, but there's
Mhm.
still this other part that introduces some flexibility, some adaptability. So it's both. It's a sort of balance, right? And I think a lot of concepts land there in balance.
Yeah, and I think for primary care, you have to be adaptable. You can't take the same model, and I've been a part of organizations that tried to have the same model at every location in different even in different states, and it does not work, okay? It does I've seen it. It does not work. You have a core of what you do, but as you go from location or from region to region, you have to be adaptable to what that region needs. Patients are different in different parts. Even in Houston, as big as it is, patients are different. The patients in Houston are a little bit different than our patients in Pasadena, and we love them all, and we care for them all, and we're there for them all. And we want to be the best version of ourselves for them. So we adapt slightly at each practice to meet their needs where they are.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I see you're clearly very passionate about this. It's a pleasure to hear, to listen to that. So speaking of that, definitely I wanted to touch upon the subject of integrity in this
Mhm.
episode. So let's go there. You mentioned that integrity is the thing that might be the most lacking in healthcare leadership. So what do you mean by that? Where do you see a breakdown? How does it actually? How do we actually tackle that?
So that's super important in whatever walk you are in life, but especially in healthcare.
Mm,
Because individuals, they put their trust in their healthcare provider. When we write a prescription, when we write a treatment plan, they're putting their trust in that clinic, that physician, that clinician, that what they are giving them will help and heal them. And so it's
mm-hmm.
so very important that when we're making decisions as leaders, that our values, our moral compass is leading the decisions we're making. And we have to always ensure that we're putting people, and this is so cliche, but it's so true. We have to make sure we're putting people before profits. You can say you value people, you can say you value your community, but when you get into the boardroom, it's all about numbers and profits and how much we're
Right.
making. You know, that's important. But what should lead decision making? It should be about the people. It should be about the patients that we're taking care of, and building that trust and having that moral compass where we're making our decisions.
I understand. So what do you think, how does this translate to the day to day, or what are the most, kind of the toughest dilemmas here? If you were to speak to, 100, 200, 2,000 other practice managers, what would you call them to do or not do in the first place?
In terms of integrity, I would say, guard your heart and guard your mind. And what I mean by that is sometimes when we get busy with work, when we get busy doing what we're doing, when we get busy looking at the numbers and looking at, all the data, we can forget that behind those numbers and behind that data is a person. It's somebody's uncle, it's somebody's aunt, it's somebody's father, mother. And at the end of the day, if we're blinded by the profits, if we're blinded by the data and we can't see the individuals who we're taking care of and they're putting their trust in us, we have to we have to open up our eyes and kind of see, do I need to do a 180 and kind of come back to reality and understand why I got into this business. And so essentially that's what I would tell if I had to speak to a large group of people. Remember, the decisions you are making impact somebody's aunt, uncle, mom, dad,
Yeah.
family, community. And so make sure you're making decisions from the right place.
Yeah, yeah. So how does that reflect in the day-to-day work? I'm trying to paint a picture of like what the temptations might be here. I understand that one temptation is profit, but like specifically then, what do you think is one decision that, some practices might be making where you wish they would make another decision for these people?
That's a good question. I would say, even if you think about the hours of operation, just for an example, right? If you think about the hours of operation, if you know there are some people in your community who would benefit from one additional hour of you being open, right, at night. And because it doesn't necessarily make sense currently based on the data, you fail to make that decision because you're looking at the data and not what the people need. What I would recommend is try it for a month, try it for 2 months, and let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, okay, then do the right thing. But at the end of the day, I think you need to try to always do what's best for the patients and give it a shot. I think in terms of building a successful practices, there are some risks that you have to take. And the quickest way to succeed is to fail. And you got to fail fast. And so you got to learn, you got to evolve, you got to try things out, but always keep the patient at the forefront. And I'm a believer that if you do what's right for the patient, success will follow. If
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
what's right for the patient, success will follow.
I love that. On the subject of succeeding through failure, I saw this post on LinkedIn, where else, recently.
Mm,
It was some sort of executive talking about how they were growing their company kind of in the initial stages, and they said
mm,
their goal was to get to 50 no's because they were doing like direct sales of the product, right? Just to get to 50 no's, get in touch with people, get on a call with them, pitch the product, and get to 50 no's. And they got close to that once before they got their very first yes on the product. They were just launching on the market. And then they said, with each next effort to get the next yes, they need to get fewer no's for that. And that really stuck with me, you know. How would people act differently if they focused on, okay, let's just try 50 things, let's run
mhm.
50 experiments. We talk about that often here at Talkie.ai, even in our marketing, right? Let's just run 50 experiments and see, which ones of those show us some signal on what works, so that, you floated that memory up for me, which provides me with, ironically, a perfect segue to the next thing I wanted to ask about while we still have time. So one thing that's unique about this episode is you're also a client of Talkie.ai, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I would love for you to say a couple of words about that story. What led you to initially reach out to us and work with us? Because we've been live with you for quite a while, right? Already with our AI receptionist. So if you could speak to that for a moment and tell the other practices how that went to perhaps inspire them.
Yeah, so Talkie, I found Talkie at a very pivotal point in our practice.
Mm,
We had astronomical growth, and our phone calls were ringing off the hook.
mm,
We could not keep up with the number of calls that were coming into our practice. And so I needed a solution. And the solution was not hiring a call center with 20 different people. That was not the solution. And so I researched and I found Talkie. And from day one, the individuals at this organization, at your organization, have been stellar, in my opinion. Professionals, explained everything very well. Even we had an in service where we were able to do a virtual live with the specialists at Talkie to walk us through and our staff through how everything works, so everybody understands from top to bottom how Talkie would benefit our practice. And so far, it has been a great addition to our practice. Of course, there was a little bit of patient abrasion because
mm,
patients were used to speaking to an individual at the practice when they called the practice. But now we have patients who they have gotten used to Jessica. And so Jessica is our virtual assistant who answers the phones for us. And so it's great to see how Talk is able to schedule patients into our schedule, incorporates well with our EMR. Talk is able to
mm.
leave messages for clinicians, tee up medication refills. And so it has provided us a tremendous lift in terms of patients calling the practice and needing our support and our help as it relates to appointments, medications, and messages for our clinicians.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying all of that. So you mentioned with quite a bit of emphasis that the solution was not a call center with 20 people. Why do you say that? Is that a cost thing or something else?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First of all,
Okay.
it's a cost thing. And then second of all, managing that. That would be very difficult to manage all of that. I've seen call centers, good and bad. And the way things are going with technology, it is, in my opinion, a great decision to bring something on like Talkie to help handle the calls coming into the clinic. It has been a tremendous lift and also not a significant burden on the financial performance of our clinic.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And could you say more about the reaction of the patients? Take us deeper into that. So what were they saying, in the beginning versus what they are saying now? You said that they got used to talking with the AI. So what does that look like?
Patients in Pasadena, where we started Talkie first, they're used to the traditional model of primary care,
Mm-hmm.
where they call and they speak directly to Susie or Joanne, who rooms them when they come to clinic. And so that's what they're used to. And so speaking to this virtual assistant was very new for our patients. And so that was something that they were not accustomed to. And so that's something we had to, especially our senior patients, our Medicare patients, that was something that that's a new model for them. And so that's
Sure.
just something we had to work with them on, letting them know and kind of walking them through. And Target was great. They gave us some informational forms that we could give patients just to explain what it is and how it worked. And we always let the patients know at the end of the day, if you need to speak to our front desk, Talkie will transfer you to one of our front desk employees so you can speak to them and get what you need. So we have seen tremendous adoption by our patients. There's still a couple that we're still waiting
Yeah.
on just to, to fully
Yeah.
adopt the model. But the majority of our patients, they have used it. And, I was surprised when we first started it. There were some of our senior patients who, "Oh, Dr. Gilbert, I love it." And
Oh.
they caught on really quick. So, but no, it has been it's been a tremendous support for our growth in terms of handling our call volume.
Yeah, I love that. And you speak to something that we've heard, honestly, quite a few times where, because that's like a very easy story to tell, for for practice managers to tell themselves, like, our older patients are not gonna accept this. But it turns out the reality is quite different. Some people are more tech enthusiastic, some more
Yeah,
skeptical, and it runs through all, ages, all the demographics.
absolutely.
You also mentioned, the EMR integration. That's something that is another kind of anxiety of people with this kind of technology. Any kind
Mhm.
of technology really is. It's another portal, it's another login, it's another tab to keep open. I'm never gonna go in there. So could you say more about like the actual reality of working with a product like Talkie in terms of the EMR integration?
Oh, man, I think without that, it would be extremely difficult. I agree, going from one interface to another, it would be very time consuming and a lot of clicks. But yeah, Talkie integrates well with our current EMR, and the EMR we're about to transition to, it works very well with that too. And so that was one reason I picked Talkie, is because of that reason, just having
Yeah,
everything in one place. If we need to log into Talkie and kind of take a deeper dive into the call, listen to the call, see what happened, we can. But for the most part, we are very pleased that it integrates well with our EMR.
I see. So what would you say is the most important burden that Talkie takes off of your team? Because we do a bunch of things, right? There's scheduling conversations,
Mhm.
there's providing information about appointments, a bunch of other functionalities in there. So what do you think the team and you yourself appreciate the most?
I think just triaging the call, that is something I've seen it really help the team. And so when a call does come through, if it does come through, we know it went through several layers before it got to us. And so
Yeah.
triaging that call, so Talkie can schedule, so it takes care of that. If they need a medication refill, Talkie can do that. And so we know when the call is actually coming to the clinic, it is something important that we can take time to handle. But I would say the most important thing that Talkie has done is triaging the calls for us.
Okay, okay, really, really interesting. And yes, I heard this from some of our other clients as well, where it's because Talkie picks up the calls and is like the first line of defense there. It's more of a prioritized list
Mm,
afterwards for for the front desk to follow up on,
yep,
right? Uh,
yep.
and that's something that they appreciated as well. That's on our YouTube channel as well. Watches
Mhm,
and Listeners. So check that out. We've got a whole playlist of Talkie AI reviews and stories, and I'll
mhm,
put that in the show notes as well here. So last question in this segment. Obviously, a lot of people are still skeptical about this type of technology, Talkie in general. I wonder if you've had conversations like that already, with some others who might be thinking about it but not entirely convinced yet. Or if you were to speak with somebody who's not entirely convinced yet, what would you tell them about this sort of technology?
I think this is where we're going in terms of a society. And so I think we have to learn how to use it, leverage it, get comfortable with it. If you call other organizations or if you call other business sectors, they're using the same type of technology. And so why not use it in healthcare for our benefit and for our patients? So I would encourage individuals to give it a try and use it to take better care of patients, leverage it as much as you can because essentially, like I said, this is where we're going.
Yeah, yeah. I really like your grounded approach towards this. And what's making me really happy is that, these two things can coexist, right? Really
Mhm,
caring about the service that you provide to your patients, about their experience, right? And also in the areas where it makes sense, filling the gap with technology. It's
mhm,
really great to hear stories like this.
mm,
Thank you
yeah.
so much for saying all of that, and really thank you for coming on the show as well and sharing that. We have a couple extra minutes, so I'm going to ask one extra question. Because when we spoke previously, um, you mentioned something because leadership is important, integrity is important, running a great team is important, and I guess it starts at the hiring process, right? Getting the right
Mhm,
people on board. And I think for any leader listening to this, not even necessarily in healthcare, that's one of the key challenges. And for somebody like you who's done the work, done the scaling, built the team, what would your advice for hiring be? For finding the right people, getting them on the bus, so to speak. What would you share with the audience today?
no, that's a good question. So I practice something I learned from Warren Buffett, and I
Mhm,
teach
mhm.
my leaders this too. There's three eyes you're looking for when you interview candidates. That is intelligence, initiative, integrity. Okay. Those are the
Okay.
three eyes you're looking for when you are looking to hire the right talent. And so, intelligence, you want to make sure that they are capable to do the job, they know the skills. Initiative, you want people who will be thinkers, problem solvers on your team. And then integrity, we talked about this earlier. We want people on our team who are going to place patience above profits. And so that's that excellence, every encounter, every patient. And so I preach, I teach those three I's. If we can find those and the talent that we're looking for, that would be a great fit for our culture.
I love that. I love that. Super memorable too. So, which one is the hardest to find?
That's a good one. I think, speaking honestly, it's hard to really fill out the initiative part when you're interviewing. You're meeting that person for the first time. The
Yeah.
initiative is something you find out later on, but the intelligence and somewhat of the integrity, you can definitely kind of decipher that during the interview process. So I would say initiative is the hardest one because it takes a couple months, couple weeks really to find that out.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. Some people have this initial burst of energy, right? They're highly
Mhm.
motivated at the start, but does that carry through into like the third month, 6 months, second year of their work? I totally understand that. Do you have any
Mhm.
particular, because we're talking about hiring, right? Recruitment questions that you ask to check for those, or how do you actually try to find those out as you're looking to get people on board?
Yeah, good question. So there are a set of questions I always ask people who I interview is one is, do you work well in a team? The second
Mm-hmm.
is, how do you deal with conflict on the team? The third question I always ask is, how do you handle difficult patients? I need to know, I have to have confidence that if we do have a difficult patient, that you're going to treat them with the utmost respect, care, and concern. We all know life happens and that patient may just be having a bad day. But we at Cornerstone MD, we want to make sure that we provide excellence every encounter, every patient, no matter what we're presented with. So those are questions I always ask every person I interview.
Yeah, those are great. And can I point out just one thing that you've been doing throughout this whole conversation?
Mm.
Excellence, every encounter, every patient. I feel like as leaders, we don't pay enough attention to for things to actually sink in, you have to repeat them until you're blue in the face and they're starting to hear it. The worst the same in marketing as well. When you're sick of repeating some sort of message to the market, that's when they're really starting to hear it. And I really love how you've got these kind of phrases that you repeat even within this one conversation. And I can see how the team would respond to that of, oh, I know what Dr. Gilbert is gonna say,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Excellence in every interaction. So that's something I caught from this conversation and learned from this conversation as well, and that's part of the point of the show is to learn to of course teach the watchers and listeners about things, but hey, so much learning for myself personally as well, I have to admit. All right, Dr. Gilbert, our time is almost at an end here today. What an interesting conversation at a very interesting time of day, I have to say again. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with our watchers and listeners before we close out the episode?
No, I think this podcast is very needed, for
Mm.
great minds to come and listen and kinda glean some important tips on how to be successful as we're growing practices. I think more than ever, we need strong primary care in every corner of the United States, and all over the place. And so, very proud of what we're building here at Cornerstone MD. Excellence, every encounter, every patient. That's our motto for our staff. And so, just thankful to have this opportunity to share some insights and some thoughts. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Thank you for coming on the show. As the last question, where can people find you and follow you? Are you on LinkedIn by any chance, or some other places where people can connect with you?
Yes, my secretary gave me some some of that information to share.
Okay,
So people can find me on LinkedIn, Lewis Gilbert. You can go to our website, www.cornerstonemd.health. You can also go to our foundation page, which is on that website as well, Cornerstone MD Cares Foundation. Our medical spa, lumehouse.health. That's LUMEHAUS.health. I also have technology that we're building. So we have a healthcare app that we are building called
cool.
mywilly.health, where patients is remote patient monitoring, remote therapeutic monitoring. We have an app that we built, so mywilly.health. You can check that out. And then I'm on Instagram, Dr. Lewis Gilbert as well.
Okay, great. I didn't know you were on Instagram. I need to look you up. So that's excellent. We'll put all of that in the show notes. I'll kind of confirm the links with you after we finish recording. As for scaling practice management, if you liked this episode and want more of the show, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like and follow and rate us on the podcast platforms, and spread the good word about this show, because we really are trying to help people like you running, scaling, and introducing excellence into your practices. Dr. Gilbert, thank you again so much for joining us here today. And thank you, watchers and listeners, so much for joining us here today. This has been Scaling Practice Management. I have been Jakub Grajcar, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.